Carson City Consolidated, Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization to order. May I have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Novak, Member Dodson, Member Erb, Member Henderson,
Here.
Member Maloney,
Here.
Member Schutte,
Here.
ex officio Member Rosenberg.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to agenda item 3, which is our public comment. And so far, I have no signups for the CAMPO meeting. Would you come on up? Sure. And this is for CAMPO, not RTC. Okay, come on in. We do both, and sometimes people, anywhere doesn't matter. And then you just push the button once, it'll turn green, and give us your name, and you can go.
Thank you. And good afternoon, everyone. I am Eric Obermeyer. I'm a resident of Silver City, and I travel Highway 50 through Mount House almost daily. I've lived here for 30 years, and I've seen Highway 50 evolve from 2 lanes to a 4-lane arterial, carrying more and more traffic at ever-increasing speeds. Like everyone else, I have seen over the years how accidents in Mount House are becoming more serious, if not more numerous. And like everyone else, I am deeply saddened by the accident that took the life of Ella Rose Marquez Conchas in January. I have attended the community meetings held in Mount House to address residents' longtime concerns about this issue, culminating with NDOT's proposal to lower the speed limit from 45 to 35 miles per hour. This is good to see, but it is not a permanent solution. And I am concerned that neither NDOT nor CAMPO is moving expeditiously toward a permanent solution. CAMPO's draft local road safety plan from May of this year recommended considering a roundabout or a signalized intersection at the Highlands Drive Red Rock Road intersection. However, at their July 2nd presentation to the Mount House Citizen Advisory Board, NDOT representatives made it clear they were not even studying a signalized intersection, let alone moving toward constructing one. In my opinion, and in the opinion of many area residents, a signalized intersection is the best solution. It is also among CAMPO's solutions. It would obviously make pedestrian crossing safer, and it would provide safe and timely entry and exit to and from the highway for residents, school buses, and the many commercial vehicles such as concrete trucks and material and freight haulers, which are critical to the Mount House economy. I understand this issue will likely be addressed in the upcoming Phase 2 study, but that's only a study, and it won't be finished until a year from now. I urge you to begin an immediate directed study with the goal of proceeding toward construction of a signalized intersection in Mount House as soon as possible. The safety issue in Mount House has been neglected for too long, and I have to say, at this point in time, government is failing the community of Mount House. It's failing the residents of Mount House, and it's failing everyone who travels Highway 50. And of course, it's up to you to act before the next tragedy. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have any other public comment for CAMPO? Okay, we're going to move on then to item 4, which is approval of our minutes of August. We're not to October yet, but let's try. To August 14th of 2024. Ms. Maloney, a few little typo corrections.
Thank you, Mayor Bagwell. On packet page 7, under item 5A, on that first line, it says Ms. Normal, but it should be Ms. Norman. So I just had that one correction, and if there's no other changes from any other members, I would move to approve the minutes with that one correction.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect the motion was unanimous. And doggone, you don't want to be normal today? She's just back there and didn't even get my little joke, but that's okay. She'll be Miss Norman. Okay, we're moving on to agenda item 5A, discussion and possible action regarding amendment to contract number 233-00352 for Parametrics, Inc. To perform the Phase 2 of the US 50 East Carson Complete Streets Study to amend the contract scope and to increase the contract not to exceed by $179,374 for a new total contract not to exceed $327,590.81. Ms. Norman.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Kelly Norman, Senior Transportation Planner. So Phase 1 of the US 50 East Carson Complete Streets Corridor Study was presented in July of this year. Staff received comments to include safety, speed reduction measures, and conflict reduction solutions for specific intersections within the corridor. Staff will include these in the scope for Phase 2, and that begins on packet page 14. The limits of the study have been extended to include all of Mound House to State Route 341. Staff are aiming for safety infrastructure solutions for both Carson City and Lyon County's vision of this corridor to best meet the needs of the public in the short and the long term. Staff expect a completed plan by fall of 2025. Thank you.
So let's start with, we had some public comment just a moment ago that dealt with studies and when and how we can direct activities. And I think that it's important that we respond to that. So one, what is CAMPO's role versus the role of DOT in when and how does the activity actually get directed to occur? So in CAMPO, this is a plan that DOT is paying for, correct? To have an understanding. I just think it's important that he knows the steps as they're coming and why it's not something today that CAMPO is going to say, go put in a light, right? Because is that our role? So I think it would be important to try to answer that within this perspective. Or Mr. Martinovich. She's like, you take that one. That works.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. Basically, CAMPO's role at this point is to identify some of the needs along the corridor study. We'll do that in close cooperation with our partners at NDOT, understanding what their needs are as well, working with them, understanding, gathering that information. And once the study is completed, it'll have a series of concepts or recommendations, and we'll work again with NDOT on identifying potential funding sources through their One Nevada plan and the different category areas that they use to prioritize projects. We need that data in place so that we can understand how it ranks in priority for all the other projects, not only in the CAMPO region, but in the state or even Northern Nevada and statewide. So there's a process involved with that, unfortunately, to say, but without the study, we wouldn't know what's needed out there. We wouldn't know what the solutions are out there. And so that's the critical element with the planning document, is to understand, here's the need, here are some solutions. Okay, now let's go start tackling the funding issue and building it.
But who would be doing that building? Us as CAMPO?
CAMPO wouldn't be doing the construction.
That's what I'm trying to get. I really want to provide the information to the gentleman to understand the nuancing of this so that he's aware. It's not CAMPO here saying, we might recommend when we get done with the study that says, okay, we've looked at everything and we think you should put in a signal, or we think you should put in a roundabout, or we might help rank, here's 10 projects that need to get accomplished, and maybe you rank number 1 or maybe you're number 4. Those types of activities is what CAMPO does. And so I wanted him to know that his public comment matters and that we right? That's important to me, that people know we're listening to them, but what's within our jurisdiction and what is not within our jurisdiction. So the actual building or fix for that particular location is in NDOT's bailiwick when this all gets done. So I just thought it was important that he recognized that. And then that the other tough part of all of this is I'm with you. When you feel like people are losing their lives and we're having crashes, it's not the only area, however. But if you live there like he does, it's got to be the most important thing, right? Because it's where you are and it's what you see happening. But I know at the state level, you're looking at all of the crash data and then prioritizing projects. So it's also not that you have a crash and you can jump right on something and somehow magically find $10 million or something and put in a project. So, but I wanted him to know that his public comment is so very vital and important because it does help us rank and make decisions and have understanding. But does anybody else have any comment or anything on this? Anything? Nothing? Okay, then I'm going, oh, I absolutely apologize. Usually that's our city manager, so I don't look that direction. I apologize, Wes.
Yeah,
Because that's certainly your area.
we,
So
we,
please.
we ignore our county manager too, so.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
That didn't come out right, but go ahead.
No, no, I'm really excited about this. I'm glad to see that, phase 2 has been extended out to State Route 341. I'm hoping phase 3 goes from 341 out to Chaves Road sometime in the future. And I do want to say that I know that at times because, as you know, the county commission can't get together before a meeting and discuss things. So there have been times both with NDOT and even with CAMPO where there's been some mixed messages coming from the county commission. So what we're going to do, and it's going to link in really good with this extended study at the 341, is we are going to hold a workshop and develop a county policy statement on transportation throughout Lyon County. So that will hopefully help unify the message that we're sending both to CAMPO and to NDOT. So, and again, I want to thank you guys for coming out to the county commission and making that presentation last meeting. Thank you.
Okay, now I'll look. Anybody else? Okay, then I'm going to bring this item out for public comment. Again, I don't see any. Okay, do I have a motion on this? Ms. Schutte.
I move to approve the amendment as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Is any opposed? Thank you. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. We're now on to agenda item 5B, discussion and possible action regarding 1, a proposed Title VI plan for the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission and the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization, and authorization for the transportation manager to sign Title VI assurances annually on behalf of CAMPO. May I have your disclosure, please, Ms. Schutte?
Yes. NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. He will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. Mr. Martinovich, is there some highlights you want to point out?
I do. Thank you, Madam Chair. First thing I wanted to note is the Title VI plans are required by all local agencies who receive federal funding of any kind, not just federal highways funding, but any federal type of funding. This plan was developed in accordance with the latest and greatest information provided by NDOT. They did a review of all Title VI plans across the state for all agencies and identified a few areas where we could make some improvements or be a little bit more efficient or compliant with latest and greatest federal regulations and federal highways interpretation of those regulations. So this plan was updated to reflect those changes as recommended by NDOT and also to ensure that we remain compliant and eligible for federal funding going forward. This plan covers both the Carson Area Metropolitan Planning Organization and the Carson City Regional Transportation Commission. It's a single plan, but both agencies have to act independently as they are both separate and independent agencies. So both bodies have to take action on this plan going forward. I, as a transportation manager, or the Title VI coordinator, as designated in the plan, and as such, there are certain responsibilities that I have as the Title VI coordinator to ensure. And one of those is training, but another one of those is potentially the signing of the Title VI assurances. And so, as indicated in the staff report, seeking board approval for the transportation manager to sign the assurances on an annual basis and to submit those to NDOT and Federal Highways on behalf of the board. The plan doesn't require annual updates or annual signatures, but the Title VI assurances do require that. And that's similar process for what we do for the Federal Transit Administration on the Jump Around Carson Title VI plan. There are still some activities we're still working on and still learning about related to Title VI. One of the areas still in the works and additional coordination is ongoing is with language assistance plan. Those of you who are on the Carson City Board of Supervisors may be more familiar with language assistance plan as it relates to Senate Bill 318 and Assembly Bill 266. So we're continuing to work with NDOT and Federal Highways on what does that mean for CAMPO, what does that mean for RTC. So potentially more to come down the line on that, on the language assistance process. But for now, I believe we've met the requirements that they've outlined for us to do. I just want to note that for anyone who does feel that they've been discriminated against in the areas of Title VI, there is a complaint procedures and a complaint form that can be filed with CAMPO or with the RTC or with the Federal Highway Administration or with NDOT related to any potential discrimination on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, disability, and other ones identified on that form. So that opportunity is available for those who feel that that's important to them and they've been discriminated against. So with that, I don't have anything further. I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Does any member have a question?
Just a comment.
Comment,
I think
Mr. Novak.
it's a comprehensive plan. We're ready. We're doing our homework. And I noted something on packet page 89, just for information in case you didn't see it. State of Nevada is now a majority minority state.
Yeah.
Carson is not, but it's 49% white and 51% minority. Yep, changing demographics. Other than that, I have
Things are
nothing else.
a-changing. Yeah, there you go. Okay, I don't see any other comments. Is there any public comment on this item? Mr. French?
Denny French, Carson City, Nevada. Thank you very much. As I've been in and out of chairs, off and on walkers and such, I really appreciate the fact that they're considering the disability aspect of this. And I would really still want to encourage the fact that the ramping be checked on occasion to see if in fact the street has gotten too high to make the ramp really available. And also during winter months that some of the areas actually be cleared so that people can get across streets to signal light changeovers and walk paths. So I appreciate this act for several other reasons also, but the main thing is it's a good step in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comment on this item? Okay, I'll bring it back here for a motion. Mr. Novak, please.
Hey. I move to approve the plan as presented and to authorize the transportation manager to annually sign the Title VI assurances.
I have a motion and a second. The second being Mr. Erb. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. Thank you. We're now on to agenda item 5C. This one is a discussion only. It's a presentation by CAMPO just on the activities during fiscal year 2024. Mr. Martinovich?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. This item, I don't really have a lot to add to this item beyond what's in the staff report. I just wanted to highlight a few things. First of all, that we completed our last 2-year UPWP cycle under our obligated budget that was received from the Consolidated Planning Grant funds. Those funds aren't lost. They do roll forward into the next UPWP cycle, so it's likely we're already utilizing some of those in our current 2-year UPWP for fiscal years 25 and 26. We've completed the majority of the work elements, as I said, on or under budget, technically. Many of the items were completed. A few of the items were delayed or not completed. One of them was, as an example, the transit non-rider survey. That was an item that was delayed as a result of the Board of Supervisors retreat and the need to update the long-range coordinated human services plan for Jump Around Carson. And so rather than doing a non-rider survey one year and then turning around the next year, doing another non-rider survey for that plan update, we decided let's combine that effort into the coordinated human services plan. And so that's an example of one of the areas that wasn't completed that was outlined. We are finishing up work on the pavement survey contract, so I would look for that next month as well. We'll get that pavement survey started here hopefully later this year. We've selected a consultant we're negotiating. We'll bring that contract for board approval here soon. So that's still continuing, and we're making good progress on that. The last thing I'll mention is in regards to vacancies and departures, and then the last thing will be safety. But we're down a staff member again, so we have 6 members. We're out short a transit coordinator at this time, and so we're continuing to coordinate and backfill that area as we can. We continue to work with our partner agencies. I know Federal Highways has had a lot of new staff getting up to speed. NDOT's had a lot of changes to staff as well. So we're continuing to work together and reform those partnerships. And as we all get up to speed, I think we'll be getting better as time goes on. The new planning manager over at Federal Highways, Brian, he's excellent. He's a go-getter, and we really enjoy working with him. So I appreciate him coming. I think he came from Guam or something like that. So I'm glad he came to Nevada. It's super exciting. Safety, we've mentioned safety on US 50, and so looking forward to continuing to work on making our roads safer, implementing elements of the local road safety plan, whether they're the specific recommendations outlined or the broad recommendations from a systemic approach, wanting to get those implemented across the area. Working with our partners of Federal Highways, NDOT, the Office of Traffic Safety, working to improve safety across all of our roads, CAMPO, NDOT, and our local roads with our individual jurisdictions. So that continues to be our focus and our goal, and following the following the mandates and processes outlined in our RTP. So continue to make progress and look forward to another fiscal year and working with all of you. So thank you.
Does any member have a question, thoughts, comments? So how about just in general, Mr. Martinovich, as you look at all of our plans and all of our documents, and if I were to ask you as the transportation manager, what's the most difficult to actually achieve? And why? Just in general, right? You've been in the role now for is this 2 years?
I don't remember the specific date, maybe 3 years, but
Somewhere in those, that's how fast everything goes, 2-3 years. But as you look at it, is I often like to just have just a moment to think about it and say, where are we hitting the mark? Is there somewhere we're not hitting the mark? Is there somewhere if we had a little bit of money, we could do something better? Is there somewhere we concentrate too heavily and we ought to resource those dollars? So I'll just say for me, one of the things that's very driven that I find in the CAMPO RTC arena is we're driven by all these federal deadlines and reports and rules and, right? But where's the planning time for ourselves, or what do you find? Is it?
well, I think that is a major time. We do spend a lot of time on those things, and there are reasons we spend time on those things. They're important. I mean, Title VI is an important component, and it does take time to update and develop that plan. But it's important to understand that those members who may be affected by Title VI, we're considering them, and we're implementing those considerations as part of our project. So while they are somewhat time-consuming, I'd argue that there is value in doing a lot of that. So, but you're right, Madam Chair, that there is a lot of time, and it does take a lot of time and effort for any MPO, ours being the smallest in staff. I don't know if we're geographically the smallest, but the smallest in staff for sure, in having the same responsibilities nearly that our partners do. But in any case, I find one of the hardest things to do is finding the funding to deliver what's in our plans and deliver projects that can make a difference to those in the area. And it's a struggle I'm sure that partner agencies have, NDOT has, and something we're looking at and trying to find solutions toward including discretionary grants and things like that. It's an area, grants particularly an area that it takes a lot of effort to develop and understand the requirements of those grants and pull that data together. But when you win them, it feels really good. And so we've always been strategic at Carson City, CAMPO, at RTC to make sure we're chasing those grants that I think we have a good potential at winning. And so looking at that as, potential solution to implementing projects. But that's a hard part. And like you said, keeping up with the federal regulations and the changes in federal regulations is hard. But it's something I sort of enjoy reading a lot of those things, reading those CFRs and NRS changes. But sometimes it's hard to interpret. Fortunately, we have district attorneys and others who can help us in that
That's your
area.
role.
But so yeah, I hope that answers your question.
No, it does. I just think we have to sometimes step back and remember the why, and that this is a planning organization. And I think that's why the question that I was trying to relay earlier is it's very difficult for us to be the funding organization of the plan elements, right? So while we're able to identify things that need to be accomplished, unless we get lucky and there's grant money out there and things, we do a lot of planning and a lot of work, but no way to execute. And so I think it's just got to, but I think we're no different, like you said, than all the other MPOs, right? It's like we know we need a light or we need crosswalks or we need, but without the money to implement it, it's difficult. But thank you for that. Does anybody else, just again, general? Okay, and that's a discussion only. So we're now on to agenda item 6A, the Transportation Manager's Report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. A couple of items to note on this item. We are continuing to work on our annual network monitoring report, so we'll look forward to that in a couple of months. We've got some new graphs and some new figures that Kelly Norman's been working on, so excited to see those. We also received an update yesterday from NDOT related to urban area boundaries as designated by the U.S. Census. They've finally come out with the latest and greatest urban area revisions and changes to all the urban areas, looking specifically at the Carson City urban area, which includes Carson City, portions of Mound House, and portions of northern Douglas County. Very little change, if any. There was one slight area of expansion in the Timberline Lakeview area, so there's a little bit of a bubble out there that's now included in the urban area. But there are no changes that necessitate expansion of the CAMPO boundary. Any change to the urban area is fully within the CAMPO boundaries and doesn't necessitate a change in any way that we see at this time. So it was an interesting discussion. Other areas of state have had some other challenges, but in the Carson City CAMPO area, very minor changes to the urban area boundaries. Last thing I'll mention is that we're coordinating with NDOT and our partner agencies related to federal policy and starting to think about the next federal authorization of the transportation bill. The IIJA, or the bipartisan infrastructure bill, goes through 2026, and I know there are discussions at the federal level about, well, what does the next bill look like? And so it's just kind of the brainstorm. Well, what do we like? What do we want to see? What are some ideas the next transportation bill should have or shouldn't have compared to this one, and opportunities there. So early discussions, but I definitely appreciate NDOT coordinating with their staff and their team to kind of lead that effort and keep us all in the loop. So that's what I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we'll go to agenda item 6B. Any other things you want to share with us, Mr. Martinovich?
I have nothing additional.
Does any members have anything they want to share? Ms. Maloney?
On that IIJA discussion, I would love to see express allowance for FDA funding to be used within some immediate proximity to bus stops so that potholes stop damaging our buses to fix asphalt. And that flexibility would be tremendously helpful for our transit operators and those across the country.
So let me ask you on a question on that, because I have an ancillary activity that I get to participate in with some federal lobbyists and things like that I'm often able to, in a different role, but certainly could carry this role to that. If there are things that we have in federal rules that we think should be amended or updated or done, that we need a message carried for us, let's go ahead and gather some of those, because sometimes I think, again, we could be responsive to the public and we might prioritize part of our federal funds for that activity if they would allow it. And so if we have some of those, I recommend always share those with Chris. And so I get twice a year an opportunity to share those. So I just did win all in HUD housing activities and gave them a few of my wonderful ideas on some of the rules, right? Because I don't think they work across the country. And I think that's like everything else, right? Even the Nevada legislature, you're making a rule for everyone, but it doesn't necessarily work for every jurisdiction. So if any of you have some of those, I think we should potentially coordinate that, and maybe, I don't know if a future agenda item or something of that nature, but I think it would be an opportunity for me to share, because you can't ever fix federal regulations if you don't have a groundswell trying to help fix it. So just want to bring that up. Why not? There's no reason CAMPO cannot come up with items. So thank you for that.
On that item, there's no prohibition on using FTA dollars on the roads adjacent to the bus stops. But when we've asked before, as Chris has reported, FTA staff are hesitant to give us approval. So some clarification in the law would be very helpful.
Right, let's push.
Yeah.
Let's push. So good comment.
Yeah, I'd like to
Uh-huh.
add
Mr.
to
Novak.
that. When I used to work for the federal government, I never could understand why we were encouraged to transfer highway money to the transit program, but there was no reciprocal option. So kind of what she was saying here, if it is a local decision and MPO is here to make decisions, why can't you use some transit money for highway-type projects as long as you're satisfied with the way things go? But realistically, we're talking about 2026 and a new bill. Congress has to act by September 30th or the government shuts down, right? And there's a chance that NDOT might get paid and you guys might not get paid. But it's partisan politics. It's always an election year, but
CRs.
yeah, continuing resolution.
Yeah.
It creates work for accountants. That's about all it does. And it's very, very frustrating to deliver a program when it's stop and start all the time. So with
Very
that,
good.
I'll be quiet.
Okay, that's all right. Anybody else have comments? Okay, then we're on to final public comment for CAMPO. Is there any final public comment for CAMPO? It's okay, we're gonna.
Thank you, Mayor,
Mr.
Chair.
French.
Denny French, Carson City. I'd had it brought to my attention about streetlights, and I don't know how often you do a review of where areas are dark and where they're not, but this individual had wanted to bring it up, but was having to leave the meeting before. Is this the right venue? Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I'll carry it over on the other one and call it good.
I'll-
You want
I'll under-
streetlights looked at. Thank you.
Yeah, review, thank
Okay, thank you. Is there any other? Okay, if there's no issue, everybody good? Everybody good? Then we're adjourned as CAMPO, and we're only going to take just like the briefest of time, because we want to try and make the 9/11 memorial that is going to be next door. So we're going to try and do that honor, and so we'll let Sandra, it was great to see you. And we'll skip right over. Transportation Commission, may I have a roll call, please?
Chairperson Bagwell,
Here.
Vice Chair Schutte, Commissioner Dodson, Commissioner Maloney, Commissioner Novak.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you so much. I have opening public comment. Did I have some? Come on up. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Costa, Carson City resident. Today I wanted to bring up the public workshop on the road funding initiatives being considered for the November elections. This workshop was deemed necessary at last month's meeting. Given the initiatives will only fund maybe about a third of the projected road repair cost deficit. Showing the advantages of these initiatives is critical to winning public support. The progress on scheduling this workshop prior to the November election needs to be presented. There needs to be new ideas on how to close the funding gap. Otherwise, the problem will just worsen. One possibility is to increase the approximately 3% of the general fund balance currently allocated to public works. We see other general funds allocated to other types of projects and infrastructure. Perhaps for the roads, we could do some of that also. This increase could come from the large 16.1% reserve planned or a reprioritization of other expenditures. Using up freed up bond capacity after the old bonds are paid off for that. There needs to be a surge in effort to raise the overall PCI quickly with an influx of funds to show the two initiatives have a chance of really making a difference in improving the road quality for that. Otherwise, initiatives may be defeated and this opportunity lost to go ahead and catch up on our roads. Thank you.
Thank you. Do I have any other public comment? Okay, then we're going to move on to our minutes of August 14th, 2024. Ms. Maloney, did you have a correction?
Thank you, Mayor. On packet page 9, under item 5C, on the comment that I had made, I was asking for a contiguous path for folks to walk the corridor, not to work the corridor, and I was wondering if we could make the correction to say walk instead of work.
I don't know, that walking might work that path pretty good. Thank you. Were there any other corrections? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion for approval with amendment.
Move to approve with the correction as noted.
I will second.
Motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect it was unanimous. I'm going to open up agenda item 5A, but not take anything except for public comment, as obviously we already heard this is CAMPO. But is there any public comment that is necessary on this item in case somebody missed? Oh, disclosure, Lisa. Same. Copy that disclosure. Go ahead.
NRS 281A.420 requires me to disclose conflicts of interest and abstain from voting when I have a disqualifying conflict. My nephew is Chris Martinovich, who is employed by Carson City and will be presenting this item. Chris and I are not receiving compensation of any kind directly related to this item. It will not foreseeably impair or enhance the terms of his service with the city, and we are not affected by the outcome of this item to a greater degree than any other resident of Carson City. NRS 281A.420 only requires abstention in clear cases, and the independent judgment of a reasonable person in my position would not be impacted by my familial relationship. Therefore, I do not have a disqualifying conflict, and I will be voting on this matter.
Thank you so much. So is there any public comment that somebody wanted to add that they didn't get to do during CAMPO? Okay, I'll accept a motion then. Mr. Dodson.
I move to approve the plan as presented and to authorize the transportation manager to annually sign the Title VI assurances.
Second?
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. We're now on to agenda item 5B, which is discussion and possible action for contract 253-00250 for Dow LLC to provide design services for our District 2 Root Street Rehab Project and the District 2 Little Lane Rehab Projects for not to exceed amount of $387,317. Do we have, Mr. Sylvester, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Casey Sylvester, Transportation and Traffic Engineer. I just want to highlight that this contract is for design of two projects, the Roop Street Rehabilitation Project and the Little Lane Rehabilitation Project. The Roop Street project has a cost of $242,999, and design is expected to complete in the summer of 2025 with construction anticipated in spring of 2026, potentially earlier, but that's when we're expecting probably spring of 26. And the Little Lane project has a total cost of $144,318, and it is anticipated to complete design in late spring of 2025 and expected to begin construction in spring of 2026 or fall of 2025, depending on how that lays out. Any questions?
Does any member have a question? Miss Maloney?
I sent a question to Chris, and Chris, or whoever, can you please just clarify on the record? We have spent money on design of a portion of the Roop Street project, and so just for the record, how much is getting lost or redone or not? Thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Commissioner Maloney, or Member Maloney. I apologize. So we are aware that the Roop Street project has previously had work done on it. This project is going to continue to build on that. We are going to use some of the design work that has been completed. We did have an expansion of the scope for this project, and we'll be building upon that for this effort.
So we're not starting from scratch.
We are not starting from scratch.
Thank you.
Mr. Dodson?
Casey, I was wondering, are you putting these projects out together? Is that the intent?
For construction, the intention is not to put these projects out together.
Okay.
Commissioner Dodson, Chris Martinovich, the reason for that is the scope of the work associated with the construction is slightly different. Roop Street project includes sewer and water work, where the Little Lane project is strictly pavement and slurry seal, so there could be different contractors who may be better suited to do those types of works. And so that's the reason we're not putting them together at this time.
I was just thinking about the, the potential savings with the one contract and the economy of scale, but I understand the distinction there.
I think you bring up an excellent point, and we always look at constructability, value engineering. I think the city's very good at looking at ways to save a little bit of money on some of our projects, and so it's definitely going to be discussed. We also have the Fifth Street project, which is in that same area that we've been discussing. How does that get combined? What's the timing of these things? We don't want to be building all these projects at the same time as well, where all the roads in that whole area are closed. So thinking about that is also playing into our sort of decision about timing and packaging of projects.
Chris and Casey, a question. I didn't see anything really set up for right-of-way, and so we're assuming everything you want to do on Roop Street is within city right-of-way right now?
Thank you, Mr. Novak. Yes, we are expecting to work within existing right-of-way.
Okay, because I saw, when I drive down there, it's hard to see. There's no sidewalk, but whose land ends where, so I'll make sure we're clear. And related to that, on the west side of Roop Street, the State of Nevada property. So I don't know if they have any projects in the works.
Oh, to hook on to.
Yeah, just be aware, coordinating with the State of Nevada is not easy, but that's what you get paid to do. So thanks.
I don't see any other questions. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, I'll accept a motion. Ms. Maloney?
I move to approve the contract as presented.
I will second.
I have a motion and a second for approval. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say no. Let the record reflect that was unanimous. We're now on to agenda item 5C, which is just a discussion-only presentation on our 2024 transportation activities. Mr. Martinovich.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Chris Martinovich, Transportation Manager. I want to give a highlight here of what's basically in the staff report related to fiscal year 2024 activities from the past year ending June 30th. We've been, chasing and receiving and applying for and executing grants. We have $100,000 for our Safe Streets and Roads for All grant from the Federal Highway Administration. We were fortunate to receive $2.6 million for the Curry Street Rehabilitation Project from the congressionally designated spending, and we continue to search for other avenues, whether it's congressionally designated spending or other grant opportunities to complete and build projects. We're waiting to hear still for our Federal Lands Access Program grant for Ash Canyon Road, and we're on the transit side, variety of grants through the DHCFP, the state's office of DHCFP, as well as other FTA grants we're continuing to receive year over year. As far as activities go, a major effort this past year has been the Local Road Funding Initiative, as was mentioned during public comments. So the majority of that work is completed, and that information was presented last month. We are working to get all that information up on the project's website. I do have the final report. I want to get that posted, so we'll get that in the next couple of days so that all of you can see that, and anyone else in the public can have access to that final version with those edits that were discussed made. We've also been working on a variety of other activities. I wanted to highlight those, specifically the Western Nevada Safe Routes to School program continues to do tremendous outreach in the community. Scott does tons of activities each and every week. I know the mayor's worked with him on a variety of things, and many of you may have as well. Many schools, many activities. I think he went to like 3 or 4 back to school nights all in one night. So he was bouncing around with our coordinator. So a lot of activities, successful completion of the Douglas County Safe Routes to School Master Plan, and continuing the momentum associated with that. We did receive that Office of Traffic Safety grant that we applied for earlier this year, $10,000. And so we're going to apply that to safety messaging, and he's working on some advertisements and some movie theater postings. So when you go to the movie theater, we could see a Safe Routes to School message pop up there. So look for those in the coming months as we continue to receive those funds and roll out that program. On the capital projects side, I wanted to note that we continue to leverage a lot of federal dollars in Carson City specifically. With only $11.8 million, we've been able to secure $48 million going back to fiscal year 2019. So that's $60 million of projects at a match rate of 19 and a little change percentage. So local dollars leveraging federal dollars, we talk about that a lot, and we're continuing to be successful and want to continue to be successful and strategic in those federal grants. On the specific projects related to fiscal year 24, on the project status report, there were 19 active projects throughout the course of the year. There were 14 active at the moment. That report was presented last month. You'll see it next month as well. Of those 19 projects, we did 16 centerline miles of road, 9.3 miles of pathways, and various improvements to ADA accessibility and traffic signal improvements. Total budgeted investment of all those 19 projects is $55 million across all funding sources. So whether it's local funding from this board, the RTC, other local funds from utility divisions, federal funds, redevelopment area funds from the city's divisions, departments, $55 million in total projects. When we look at one specific year, we budgeted $8.4 million of projects and delivered $7.5 million of projects just in fiscal year 24 alone. And those fluctuate from year to year depending on the size of the project. When William Street gets going, obviously that's going to be a larger expenditure going forward in that particular fiscal year. So just this little snapshot in time, and I'd like to continue reporting this sort of information going forward as part of this annual summary. So with that, the last thing I'll note is the pro rata contributions. We're continuing to collect pro rata contributions for those listed in the staff report for Appian Way, Ormsby Boulevard, North Lampa Path, intersections at North Carson, Silver Oak, and intersections Solomon and Robinson. We received $575,700 in fiscal year 24 from pro rata developer contributions toward those projects. And those are reported in item 6C of every month's packet. Happy to answer any of the questions from there. Otherwise, again, I appreciate working with this board on execution of projects.
So I just have a general question because I get it often from the general public as to why are we not prioritizing as RTC the neighborhood road? Why aren't we doing that? And I have the answer or my answer. And so to me, I really appreciate this funding table because that's how I'm able to tell them the reason I don't is because we bring in 11.8 million, we're going to get 48 million. But if I changed the matrix to the projects that we were doing, we're not going to get the $48 million because there are not grants for neighborhood roads. And I just want to make sure I'm accurately reflecting, you're not aware of any grant sources that we could go after to find for our neighborhood roads. Is there anything that's out there that we're not applying for that we could be or allocating?
There's nothing in the formula funding that comes to mind offhand. So there are funding sources, as was mentioned during the CAMPO. Federal Transit Administration funds could be used in a quarter mile of sidewalks, a mile of, I think it's 3 miles for bike facilities within a bus stop. So that could be used for some sidewalk improvements, but it's really limited on its roadway capacity usage there. We have been successful in congressionally designated spending, so some of that money could be used if we're successful with the right project and the right combination of factors that our congressional representatives, 2 senators and Congressman Amodei would support a project to bring back funding, and we have done that for our vulnerable user project on the west side of Carson. While it's a sidewalk-focused project, we are looking at doing some roadway preservation in addition to those new sidewalk connections and ADA upgrades. So we're trying to combine and leverage that usage at the same time, although that funding is really going to be used for the sidewalks. Additionally, there's the highway safety improvement funds, the HSIP funds that can be used on local roads in the right circumstances. And so that's one of the areas and one of the main reasons for the local road safety plan completed by CAMPO, and look for more of that coming soon. Casey Sylvester here is working on some ideas for some projects, safety-related projects. A lot of focus is going to be on the regional roads because that's where the volume is, that's where the speed is, that's where the identified needs are from a crash and a vulnerable user perspective. But it is something we're looking at and trying to understand how we can use some of these other funding sources that do have some eligibility onto the local road network.
Chris, I think you guys are doing a great job, and the annual report reminds us of all the great stuff. And I think searching for money, you've got a pretty good handle on DOT funding, but other agencies, other federal agencies or state agencies, I think you're looking for it all the time. And if you can find something that fits, you're going to chase it down.
I forget, I'm drawing a blank. The Inflation Reduction Act did have some other funding associated with it related to low carbon materials. There's low carbon pavement is an area of funding in that particular legislation. We're working with a consultant to see what does that mean? What are the potential strings attached? So I'm not going to say that that's going to be a silver bullet or something that we're going to be able to use or apply for, but there are other grants out there, as you mentioned, through other legislation that could be eligible. Oftentimes, they're a little unique. My fear with this particular one under the Inflation Reduction Act is that it's only going to be the cost of the difference from the normal pavement to the low carbon pavement, as an example. And so it's like, well, then we still got to come up with the money to do the thing. But if we wanted to try something new or different or innovative, there might be money for that. So there's sort of a balance there that we're trying to figure out and see if is that opportunity, other programs in that bill that could be invested in. This was the most promising right now.
I just think it's super important that the public realizes we're looking. We're not sitting still. I mean, if there's something out there that we could go and get that would help us fix, we would have added it to the Carmine project or, and say, great, now we can do Sherman Lane too, or we can do the cross street of Nye or whatever, Bunch Way and all of that. And just, I know it's a lot of work, but applying for grants, but there are ways that we can bring dollars into our community and help. So thank you for that. And I know it's a lot of work, but keep looking. Thank you. Okay, we're now on to agenda item 6A, your report.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. 2 items to note. We did receive approval from NDOT to begin construction or the construction phase of the citywide multi-use path project, formerly known as the DMV multi-use path project. So we're going to put our bid package together and get that out to bid here this fall. So look for that at a future meeting, contract award at a future meeting. And we are about to kick off, I believe it's tomorrow, our Carmine Street project with our design consultant Loomis. So getting that design underway in short order. With that, I'll happy to take questions.
I don't see any. Okay, we're on to agenda item about our street operations report.
Street operations report, this is the first report for the fiscal year '25. So this covers July activities. So that's why the fiscal year to date has been updated and refreshed for those curious what happened to the previously large numbers. A lot of work has been done on sidewalks. A lot of work has been done on the weed abatement as well as the tree care. I don't know the details of the tree care. I believe Mr. Cooley is here if there are specific questions on those. But I have seen crews out doing a lot of sidewalk, flat work. I know they're working right now out on Winnie Lane, and they're on their list of needs and areas across the city. I think we're out to 2030 or 2031 or something like that for flat work needs. So a lot of work to be done and a lot of work being done by our street crews.
Does anybody have any questions on that report? At some point, and I don't know if it's actually RTC, but I'm looking at Rick since he happens to be here. I can give him a look. I think that trees are important to everyone, and I don't know that everyone even realizes which trees belong to whom. You know, so we have a lot of areas in the community that, well, that's your tree. I'm like, no, it's not. That one's not our tree. That one's Silver Oak's tree, or yeah, that one's ours. But to really be proactive, and if there's anything that people can do, so something I just learned recently that's like, okay, well, that particular type of tree is 25 years old, and so that has reached a useful life versus I don't know, I just think all you got to do is water them and nourish them and they'll last forever, but that's not true, right? So it's time for some areas of our trees to actually potentially be replaced. And so I don't know that RTC, who funds trees? RTC, our regular street operation. So he'll think about it and we'll think about whether this is an item for us. Okay, so that's just a topic for a later discussion as to where we're going to have it. Okay, thank you. We're now on to agenda item 6C. Do you have anything else to share with us?
I don't have anything else to share other than I apologize for the typo in the diesel gallons sold fiscal year 21 column. I think there was a copy and paste. So I'm not sure what happened there to December. We will get that fixed and update this summary with that number. Anyway, nothing more to report on the revenue side of things.
I think this report is wonderful.
This
So
closes out.
Again, it's just more information for people to understand, you know, where we are to be able to say, okay, how much money have we received? And to say, okay, we had $1.7 million, now we're at $1.8 million. You know, we had 3.6 million, oh, that might be an 8, little writing for me to see, versus 4.2. So that you can see it's just not escalating the same as the inflation. And when people say, well, why can't you do it? I'm like, because I can't do it. I can't create the money that's not there, so thank you for that. It's very appreciated. Okay, we are now, oh, wait, just, would you please report for us under this item when the public workshop, I think Mr. Costa in his public comment asked for a little bit of detail. When will we be having our workshop?
We're planning to hold a workshop in this room on September 30th.
September 30th at what time?
I don't know the time off the top of my head,
Okay.
probably 5 or 6.
To get the public out. I just want to get that out there already, that we'll be having a public workshop as promised on all the updates with all the new numbers, everything that's going on. Okay, we're now to final public comment. We're going to make it to the ceremony. Oh, Miss Maloney?
The right
Yeah,
places.
6C, other items. Yeah.
Okay. You mentioned the transit coordinator, Chris, during the CAMPO meeting, and there was a project that this this board approved back in 2020 or 2021 to add lighting to our bus shelters and to replace the Jack bus stop signs. Their retroreflectivity has long been gone, and it's very challenging for our drivers to see the stops when it gets dark in the winter especially. And I know we kind of slow rolled that when we got our new transit coordinator, and now without him, I don't know what the request is, if we need other public works resources to help, but that project is really important to me, and I was wondering if we could get an update or how RTC could support you so that we could get that done sooner than later. Thank you.
Sure, absolutely. And I can give you a short response now, and I'm happy to bring another item back with a further update. I can say that Casey Sylvester, who's a sign expert, has redesigned our sign. We have a design mocked up. We have a design ready to go. We're working with our street operations sign shop to make sure it's something that can be printed and made should we need to make it as the city. One of the issues with our previous sign is the little swirls and some of the fonts were difficult for our printer and difficult for our software. We've simplified the sign a little bit to make it something we can reproduce, but given the scale, we're probably going to go out to bid. But I can report that we do have a new sign design. Happy to share that with this board at the next meeting if you're interested in seeing that, as well as an update on the lighting portion of that as well.
Great. Thank you. Okay, again, no public comment? Okay, well then with that, we're adjourned, and I hope that all of you will join us at the 9/11 Memorial, just on the loop, coming